Welcome to this podcast is Uncalled For. On today's edition, Mike's Top 10 Board Games. And now, your host for this podcast, Mike Chernevsky.
Welcome to the podcast. So, it's been a little slow getting interviews lately, but some interviews are coming. Keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, we're going to do something that I've never done on this podcast before, and that's to do a top 10 list. Because I'm in the board gaming hobby, it's fitting that the first top 10 list we do on this podcast is a top 10 board games list. So this is my top 10 board games as listed on Board Game Geek. On it, I have a profile, and on the profile is my top 10 board games. So these are limited to games that I own. I am intentionally excluding chess, and I'm excluding games I don't own that I really enjoy. So Twilight Imperium and Sentinels of the Multiverse will not be appearing on this list, but I'm going to give them a shout out right now. So without further ado, here we go. Here's my top 10 list of board games and a few honorable mentions. So number one on the list, probably no surprise because we did the playthrough on this podcast, and that's Smash Up by Outerac Entertainment Group, designed by Paul Pearson. It takes the two factions, shuffle them together, and fight each other over bases. My top three factions, in case you are wondering: Ninja, the Minions of Cthulhu, and Geeks. And I happen to think Will Wheaton is the best card in the entire game. So that's number one. Number two on my list is the game that really got me into the board gaming hobby, and that is Lords of Waterdeep, published by Wizards of the Coast, designed by Peter Lee and Rodney Thompson. And this is a what's called a worker placement game, where you just put dudes on the board, and you get certain items as a result. It is a Dungeons and Dragons themed worker placement game. Goes through 8 rounds, and you're placing your dudes on the board to gain different types of workers, which are represented by cubes, and you need those cubes to complete certain quests. There is an expansion for this game. It's called the Scoundrels of Skullports, but I recommend not getting that expansion. In fact, I effing hate that expansion because it complicates the game needlessly. Number 3 on my list is Carcassonne, designed by Klaas Jagenvrede and published by Z-Man Games in the United States. This is one of the 4 cornerstones of Eurogaming. The other 3 being Settlers of Catan, Ticket to Ride, and Alhambra. It's a tile laying game, so you're laying tiles down to build a city and countryscape. And you got meeples. In fact, this is the game that introduced the concept of the meeple. So you place your meeples down as you lay tiles down. That's how you score points, is by having your meeples on the tiles and completing certain features like cities, roads, monasteries. Emblem on their backs to be farmers throughout the entire game. I have in recent days been playing a variant with no farmers, and there are tons of expansions for this one, but I own none of them. I just own the base game. 4 is sadly out of print, but I'm going to suggest anyway. I was introduced to this game at Mid-Americon 2 when I was doing work for Fantasy Flight. This was one of the games we had to demo, and that is Android Netrunner, designed by Richard Garfield. It is a cyberpunk game, only 2 players. One player is playing as a corporation. He wants to get agendas passed. And the other player is playing as a hacker or a runner, and he's trying to steal these agendas, and that's how you score points in the game. Next up is Chez Geek, published by Steve Jackson Games, designed by John Darbro. In this game, you and all the other players are slackers, pretty much, and your roommates sharing an apartment, and the entire goal of the game is to slack off. And you have various items and activities that you can do to help you get slack. Next on the list is Suburbia, designed by Ted Alspach and published by Bezier Games. In this game, we're all building our little suburban communities. All the pieces are represented by little hexes that you put next to pieces already on your city, and they do different things depending on where you place them. Next on the list is going to be Rex, Final Days of an Empire. This is by Fantasy Flight Games, and is a re-implementation of the classic Dune board game. It's the Spice Must Flow, but it's re-themed in the Twilight Imperium universe. Next on my list is Tokaido, published by Funforge, designed by Antoine Bauza. In Tokaido, we're all on Japanese vacation, traveling the traditional East Circuit routes from Kyoto to Edo, as it would have been at the time. We call it Tokyo. And at each stop along the way, you could do special things like go shopping, or visit an onsen, or visit the temple, do some paintings, eat food. Really fun game, really relaxing game. Again, everyone's on Japanese vacation. So definitely check that out. And I own both expansions for this, the Crossroads expansion and the Matsuri. Next on my list is going to be Seasons, published by Le Bellude, which is a imprint of Asmodee, which seemingly owns everything nowadays, including Fantasy Flight. Designed by Regis Bonesse, and I apologize for butchering that if I did. Basically, we're all magicians. We need to raise our magic levels and gain certain elemental forces in order to play our cards. And as the name of the game suggests, we're going through the seasons. We're going through basically 3 years worth of gathering magical resources. And the last game on the top 10 list is a mini game, plays 3 to 6 players. It's called Kobayakawa by Jun Sasaki, and published in the US by Yellow Games. It's basically a gambling game. There's only 15 cards in the game, so that's pretty cool. On your turn, you can either choose to make a bet or draw a new card or whatever. But at the end of every round, we all play our cards if you're in. The highest score wins the round, but in the center of the board is the Kobayawa card. Whoever has the lowest number in front of him adds the value of the Kobayawa card to his total number and can win that way. And that is going to do it for this edition of the podcast. Fingers crossed, we'll try to get some interviews going soon. Keep up the good work. We're slowly but surely approaching the 500 unique downloads mark that I would like to get to before upping my Libsyn subscription to allow for sponsorships. As always, tell your friends about the podcast. We're on iTunes, our Facebook page, our blog at uncalledfor.home.blog. We're on other podcasting services, so definitely check out those if you have access to those. We'll see you next time. And as Will Wheaton would say at the end of every episode of Tabletop, play more games.
This podcast is Uncalled For is hosted, produced, and edited by Mike Chernevsky. Opening music is Iron Bacon by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Outro music is Open Door by Little Glass Men, licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution license. Additional music included Morocco Sting by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. If you would like to support this podcast or any of Mike's other creative endeavors, please consider making a donation at patreon.com/Mike Chernevsky. That's MikeCzerniewski. Donations over $5 will receive a special thanks on a future podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.